Well, I would like to introduce GCAD Plus landscape design software by taking a look at a relatively complex site. Everything you do when using a computer and computer software to do landscape design is created in what's called model space, and that's a reflection of the real size of the site and the real dimensions of every element that you add to the design, and that includes symbols that represent plant species. I can use a tool called the distance tool, and in this case I can click at the top and come down towards the bottom here, and you may notice that at the cursor that reads 74969. So we work in the imperial system in millimetres, so I have to shift a decimal point to say that's 75 metres now, and in the imperial system we work with decimal feet. But everything's full size in the dimensions that people understand when constructing the landscape design, which in this case spreads all the way around the actual building. So we're in what's called model space. In order to present the design to the client, we switch to another space, and these spaces are labelled on tabs at the bottom of the screen. They're called layout spaces, and you create them by going to Format and Layouts here. We can also use lots of layers in the drawing. If I click on this little icon here, that shows you the list of layers. Various parts of the building, probably done by an architect, are on different layers. Let's switch to what the client might see when you present this design. So I can go to a Layout tab when I've labelled A0 multiple viewports. And here we are. This is more like the sort of thing you would present to the client. So you do 90% or more of the work in that model space, but then you switch to a layout space to present your design to the client. Not only can we see, as we do here in the central zone, the design that we've just been working on in model space, we can also include images in this space just to indicate the type of species that are going to be used in the design. Both in model space and in layout space, I can zoom in and out on the design using the wheel of the mouse. I can right-click and pick options like Zoom Extents or Zoom Previous. Let's Zoom Extents, and that takes me out and shows me the whole page. At any time I want, I can switch back to the model by clicking on the tab. I can say zoom in with the wheel of the mouse, and then I might want to pick one of these symbols here, and because I'm in model space, it's full size, I can pick it, and that's a symbol representing Kafir. Let's go back to the multiple viewports again, and different views of the design can be placed inside their own little floating viewports they're referred to as. Here's a floating viewport of one part of the design. Here's the entrance space. So we switch when using a design like this. You'll switch backwards and forwards from one space to another, with the majority of the work being done in this space here. Let me zoom Extents now in model space, and you'll see all sorts of other pieces of text and other information scattered around. We don't print from here, but as you saw, we print from a layout sheet. I can right-click and zoom a window just to look at part of the plant schedule. There's the schedule, which is automatically generated, and it contains the plant symbol, the botanical name, common name, code, and total. And if I change the design by copying extra symbols, we can refresh the plant schedule, and that saves you the job of having to recalculate things. If I need to print the design at a fixed scale, I can do that. Here's an A1 landscape plan at 1 to 100. And if I just pick the floating viewport here that sits outside a rectangle, and if we come in here, you can see there's a view scale of 104, and I can type 100, hit enter, and I can make that yes. So that floating viewport now sits quite nicely. If I want to just change it, notice how on the left things are not quite positioned the way we want. I just double click in that zone, that pulls up this magenta box, and that's the fixed 100 scale. So what I might want to do is just move it up and position it like so, and you'll see we are left with a little bit of text here that's hanging outside of the zone as it is there, and I'll right click and display it on the layout and zoom extents again. So there's our 1 to 100. We need to do a little work by going back to the model and just moving these pieces of text around. And I can come in like so and go back to the plan. So there's a little bit of fiddling at this stage if your client does require a print that's exactly 1 to 100. You might have noticed in the design that there's a pool and various activities. This is an area for children and children's entertainment. So here I'm looking at a single sheet, single layout on an A4 sheet, just showing that pool area in some detail. So I'm nearly ready to go to my client. Depending on my client's particular needs, I have to do a little bit of work on adjusting the height of some of the text in there to make sure that in this particular zone here, this particular layout, things look the way I want. This entity here is a rectangle that I could make just a little larger and position it like so. The key issue, I think, for a landscape designer is that if I pick a symbol, every symbol in the design, apart from a few that I just want to show in a moment, has been tagged in a plant database file. And if I go to edit the plant list, there's the attached plant database file that's associated with this drawing, as is a 4-letter code associated with each species. I've got all sorts of tools to help me. Let me zoom extents and then zoom a window around the design. All sorts of tools to make sure I don't make errors. We can say GCAD Plus schedules and lists, show me all the symbols with names. So I mentioned that there were a few symbols that haven't yet been tagged. So if I pick this one, if I pick that one, there is no associated name. So I need to use tools in that drop-down menu and pick that symbol and associate it with one of the entries, one of the records in the plant data file. So I hope that gives you a reasonable introduction to how you might go about doing landscape design work. It's a relatively complex site, and a lot of work has gone into the creation of this design. It's a commercial and professional development